My son and his wife took the entire family out to celebrate her promotion at an expensive restaurant, but they deliberately left me behind. Hours later, a single text message arrived that would change everything forever. Make sure you heat up the leftovers in the refrigerator. Don't let them go to waste. That's what my daughter-in-law's message said. I simply typed back, "All right." Then I went upstairs and began to pack. That night, when they returned home, full of wine and laughter, what they discovered when they opened that front door left them completely stunned. It was just past 9:30 in the evening. My phone buzzed softly on the kitchen counter. I was sitting there, staring into a bowl of cheap noodle soup that I had no appetite to eat. The entire house carried the sterile scent of cleaning supplies and a deep, profound loneliness. I had spent my entire afternoon scrubbing every surface, pressing my son Mark's work shirts and carefully folding my grandchildren's tiny clothes. My fingers still smelled faintly of bleach. When I heard my phone, a foolish part of me hoped it was my son telling me they were on their way home and that they'd saved a seat for me at that celebration. But no, it was another message from Jessica, my daughter-in-law. "Just reminding you about the leftovers, don't forget." I read those words over and over. I felt something deep within my spirit quietly break, like a precious heirloom vase falling onto a thick carpet. No loud noise, just the internal shattering. This wasn't just about the text, it was the underlying tone, the subtle mockery laced within every syllable. It was the painful knowledge that while I sat alone in this house, a house I helped pay for, they were raising glasses of champagne at the Summit Grill, a place where the simplest dish cost nearly $100. I opened a social media app. I knew I shouldn't, but I did. And there they were, the photos. My son in the crisp shirt I had ironed for him that very morning, Jessica in a sleek black dress, smiling like she had conquered the world, my grandkids eating fancy pasta and making silly faces for the camera. Her parents, her siblings, everyone was there. Everyone except me. The caption read, "Celebrating my promotion to senior vice president, to powerful women who make it happen." It had hundreds of likes. I closed the app, I left the phone on the counter, I looked at my soup, now cold. And then something unexpected happened. I didn't weep, I didn't yell. A cold, steady calm washed over me, as if my soul already knew a truth my mind was just beginning to grasp. I stood up slowly. I walked to my bedroom and opened the closet door. Because what they didn't realize, what no one at that joyful table could possibly fathom, was that I had been preparing for this exact moment for many, many months. And this time, I wasn't going to warm up their discarded food. This time, I was going to vanish. And when they stumbled back home later that night, drunk on expensive alcohol and their own sense of importance, what they would find waiting behind that door would shake them to their core. But for you to fully grasp why I made that choice, I need to explain how I reached this point. How a 67-year-old woman who sacrificed everything for her family ended up being treated like an unpaid housekeeper. And if you want to discover how this story concludes, you should subscribe right now, because what happens next will permanently alter how you view family relationships. Let me take you back 3 years, to the period when I lost my anchor and, without realizing it, signed my own sentence of servitude. 3 years and 5 months ago, I buried my husband, Robert. Cancer stole him from me in less than a year, so swiftly I could barely process the loss. I was left completely alone in our family home, the one with the big backyard where we raised Mark, where we hosted every holiday and birthday party. After the funeral, the silence in that house became a physical weight. Every room echoed with his absence. Mark came to see me a few weeks later. He had Jessica with him, and he wore that specific smile he'd had since he was a small boy, the one he used when he wanted something. "Mom," he began as we sipped coffee at the table, "Jessica and I are house hunting. We need more space for the kids, but the market is just impossible right now." Jessica nodded, tracing the rim of her mug with her perfectly manicured nails. "The down payment for the place we love is $70,000. We've been saving, but we only have about half." They didn't need to say anything more. "How much do you need?" I asked. Mark looked down at his hands. "If you sold this house, Mom, you could come live with us. You wouldn't have to be alone. The kids adore you. It's a perfect solution for everyone." Jessica smiled brightly. "It would be wonderful. You could help with the children. We would take care of you, like a real family should." That word, family. I signed the papers to sell my home just a few weeks later. The house, filled with over 40 years of memories, sold for $125,000. I gave Mark $70,000 for the down payment. I put the remaining money into a savings account, believing it was my security for the future. The one thing I did not do, a decision that haunts me to this day, was have my name added to the deed of their new house. Mark told me it wasn't necessary, that the home was for all of us. "Why create extra paperwork?" he'd said, and I, trusting my only son, foolishly agreed. The new house was in a modern development with a security gate, 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, and a spacious garage. It was beautiful, stylish, and felt strangely cold. The first few months were acceptable. I would wake at 5 a.m. I'd brew coffee just how Mark likes it, strong with a dash of nutmeg. I'd prepare breakfast, scrambled eggs, toast, sometimes pancakes. I'd wake my grandchildren, Leo and Mia, get them dressed, comb their hair, pack their school lunches, and walk them to the bus stop. Jessica would rush out by 7:45, always flawless in her business attire and expensive perfume. She often wouldn't even glance in my direction on her way out. Mark would leave about 30 minutes later. Sometimes he'd give me a quick kiss on the cheek. Other times he'd just mutter, "Thanks, Mom," without making eye contact. And I would remain behind, clearing the breakfast dishes, starting the laundry, mopping floors that never seemed to meet Jessica's standards, because every evening when she returned, she would perform an inspection. She'd run a finger along the top of the bookshelf, checking for dust. She'd open the refrigerator and sigh if something was out of place. She'd examine the bathrooms like a professional auditor. "The shower glass has water spots. Leo's school uniform isn't pressed correctly. You use too much fabric softener. It's a waste." She never called me by my first name, Helen. It was always Grandma, as if it were a job title, not a name. The children, however, genuinely loved me. That was my solace. Leo would hug me tightly when he got home from school. Mia would often fall asleep in my lap as I read her bedtime stories. But whenever Jessica saw me like that, her expression would tighten. One afternoon, Mia said, "I love you more than anyone, Grandma," right in front of Jessica. That night, I overheard raised voices from their bedroom. "Your mother is undermining me with my own children. She gives them whatever they want. She's filling their heads with nonsense. She's my mother, Jess. Just drop it. Your mother or the live-in nanny who doesn't pay rent." Silence. I waited for Mark to defend me, to say something, anything, but he didn't. And in that moment, I understood I had crossed an invisible boundary. I was no longer the helpful grandmother. I was a burden they had to tolerate. The months rolled on, and the subtle humiliations became more frequent. Jessica would plan family dinners and forget to tell me until everyone was arriving. When her friends visited, she'd introduce me as Mark's mom who helps us around the house, never as a member of the family. They stopped including me in family photographs. At Thanksgiving, when they gathered for the annual picture in front of the fireplace, Jessica handed me the camera. "You have such a steady hand," she said. I stood behind the lens while they all smiled, a perfect image of a happy family. That photo was later framed and placed on the mantle. You won't find a single picture of me anywhere in this house. It's as if I'm a ghost. And the most painful part is that I had started to feel like one. Invisible, disposable, my only purpose to keep their lives running smoothly while they lived their perfect, shiny lives. But all of that accumulated pain, all the quiet disrespect built up over 3 years, was nothing compared to what happened on that April evening, the night I received that text about the leftovers. Because that night, something inside me finally snapped awake, and there was no turning back. It all started that Tuesday morning. Jessica came down the stairs practically glowing. She was wearing her navy power suit, the one she reserved for major presentations, and a smile that lit up the room. "I got it," she announced as Mark followed her down, straightening his tie. "What happened, Mommy?" Mia asked from the table, her mouth full of cereal. "I got the promotion, sweetie. Your mommy is the new Senior Vice President of Operations." Mark hugged her and spun her around. "I knew you could do it. I knew that job was yours." I was at the stove, making oatmeal. "Congratulations, Jessica," I said, and I meant it. Despite everything, I didn't wish her failure. She barely looked at me. "Thanks, Grandma," she said, staying in Mark's embrace. "We have to celebrate tonight. My wife deserves the best." "Let's go to the Summit Grill," Jessica suggested, her eyes sparkling. "The one with the incredible city views? Money is no object tonight." Leo raised his hand. "Can I come?" "Of course, buddy. The whole family is going." My heart gave a little flutter. "The whole family? That included me, right?" I put the oatmeal on the table and wiped my hands on my apron. "What time should I expect you?" I asked, trying to sound casual. Jessica looked at me as if she had just noticed I was still there. "Expect us for what?" "For the celebration dinner." An uncomfortable silence filled the kitchen. Mark cleared his throat. Jessica shot him a look, one of those silent conversations couples have. "Oh no, Grandma," Jessica said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "This is more intimate gathering. You know, just the four of us, and my parents are driving in. Immediate family only." Those words felt like a physical blow to my chest. "I see," I said, and turned back to the stove, even though there was nothing left to cook. "Besides," Jessica continued, spreading jam on her toast, "someone needs to watch the house, right? We can't just leave it empty. And you're such a good cook, I'm sure you'll make yourself something nice." Mark said nothing. My son, the boy I had raised and protected, just stared silently at his plate. They all left around noon. Jessica changed her outfit twice. The kids were buzzing with excitement in their best clothes. Mark gave me a quick absent-minded peck on the cheek. "Don't wait up, Mom. We'll be out late." And then they were gone. The house fell into a deep, heavy silence. I walked through the spotless living room, the formal dining room with its table I polished weekly, the kitchen where I prepared countless meals that were rarely thanked for. Everything was immaculate. Everything was in perfect order, and I was utterly, completely alone. I made myself a simple cup of instant noodles. I sat at the kitchen island, not in the dining room. The help doesn't eat in the dining room. And that's what I had become, hadn't I? The help who had paid $70,000 for the privilege of working for free? Around 7 p.m., I opened the social media app again. I'm not sure why. Maybe I needed to confirm my own misery. The pictures were there. The first one, Jessica, radiant in her black dress, holding a flute of champagne. So grateful to everyone sharing this special night with me. The second, my grandkids with massive plates of dessert. The third, the entire table. I counted 10 people. Mark, Jessica, the kids, Jessica's parents, her sister and brother-in-law, and a few friends. 10 people, laughing, celebrating, toasting, and me, eating cheap noodles in a kitchen I helped buy. I looked at the comments. "You're an inspiration. What a beautiful family." No one asked where I was. No one noticed I was missing because, to them, I had been missing for a long time.
I closed the app, washed my bowl, and then my phone buzzed. Jessica's text. "Grandma, remember to heat up the leftovers in the fridge. Don't waste them." I read those words and felt a part of my heart wither, but simultaneously another part, a stronger part, ignited. I opened the refrigerator. There they were. A half-eaten container of pasta from 2 nights ago, some roasted vegetables I had bought and cooked, a few slices of meatloaf. Leftovers. That's what they thought I was worth. Their casual disregard wrapped in polite language. I closed the fridge door, took a deep, steadying breath, and typed my reply. All right. Just one word. But in that single word was a decision that had been forming for months. Since the first time Jessica treated me like hired staff, since Mark stopped seeing me as his mother. I went upstairs to my room, opened the closet, and pulled out my large suitcase. Because what they didn't know, what they couldn't possibly imagine while clinking glasses of $100 wine, was that I had been quietly preparing my exit strategy for over half a year. 6 months of gathering documents, saving small amounts of cash, and building a case. Because it turns out, this invisible grandmother, this unpaid domestic worker, this 67-year-old woman they treated like an appliance, held the legal deed to the house. And I had never, ever signed it over to my son's name. This house was mine, legally and completely. And they were about to discover that fact in the most shocking way possible. I placed the suitcase on my bed and began to pack my clothes, the photographs of Robert from my nightstand. But before I folded the first blouse, I paused. This couldn't be an emotional reaction. This couldn't be a dramatic scene that ended with me begging to return in a week. This had to be final, calculated, and absolutely just. I walked to the back of my closet and moved aside a stack of old sweaters. Behind them, wrapped in a plastic bag, was my old jewelry box, a gift from my mother. I opened it and took out what I had hidden there for months, a simple spiral-bound notebook. Everything was documented in that notebook. Every single dollar I had invested in this property since the day we moved in. Every receipt, every bank transfer. 3 years of my life carefully recorded in the slightly shaky handwriting of a woman who sensed she might need a record one day. I turned the pages slowly. Down payment, $70,000. New stainless steel refrigerator, $1,950. New washer and dryer set, $2,600. Living room furniture set, $3,500. The list continued. A new water heater when the old one burst, $900. A large screen television for the family room, $2,100. New beds for all the bedrooms, $4,000. The kitchen backsplash renovation Jessica had to have, $7,200. And then there were the monthly contributions. Mark only paid $500 toward the mortgage each month, claiming that was all he could afford. But the actual mortgage payment was $1,450. Who covered the remaining $950? I did. Every single month for 3 years without fail. From my widow's pension of $1,650 per month, I contributed $950 to maintain the house where I was treated as a servant. I did a quick tally on the notebook's final page. Down payment and major purchases, $86,200. Monthly mortgage top-ups, $34,200. Various repairs and upgrades, $19,550. Total invested, $139,950. Almost $140,000. Almost every penny I received from the sale of my beloved family home, everything Robert and I built over decades, poured into a house where I was valued less than a piece of furniture.
But the most crucial item, the one that gave me true power, was tucked at the very bottom of the jewelry box. I reached in and pulled out a slightly faded legal envelope. Inside were the original property deeds. I unfolded them with hands that trembled slightly. And there it was, in the formal language of the notary, clear as day. Property located at 2847 Willow Creek Drive. Owner, Helen Margaret Croft, widow of Walsh. My name, and only my name. When we purchased the property, the lawyer had advised that since I was providing the entire down payment, it was safest to place the deed solely in my name initially. You can add your son's name later, Mrs. Walsh, he'd said. This protects your investment. Mark had agreed at the time. It's fine, Mom, whatever is easiest. And then we never got around to changing it. He'd mention it occasionally in the first year. We need to go to the lawyer's office, Mom, to update the deed. But there was always a reason to postpone it, and eventually he stopped asking altogether. And I, whether consciously or not, never reminded him. Now I understood why. Some deep instinctual part of me, the part that had survived loss and raised a child, knew I needed this protection. That instinctual wisdom is what saved me. I placed the deeds back in the envelope, but I didn't pack it yet. First, I took out my phone and dialed a number I had saved for a long time. "Hello?" answered a crisp, professional voice. "Amelia, it's Aunt Helen." "Aunt Helen! What a lovely surprise! How are you?" Amelia was my niece, my older sister's daughter, a sharp, successful attorney specializing in property law. 39 years old, recently divorced, and known for being fiercely effective in court. "I need your help. It's urgent. Can you meet me first thing tomorrow morning?" There was a brief pause. "Aunt Helen, is everything okay? You sound different." "I'm perfectly fine. In fact, I think I'm better than I've been in a very long time. But I need your legal expertise regarding my house." "Your house? I thought you were living with Mark and Jessica." "Exactly. That's precisely why I'm calling." I heard the sound of a pen being picked up. "Tell me everything." I laid out the entire situation in 20 minutes. The down payment, the deeds, the monthly payments, the humiliation, the text about the leftovers. When I finished, Amelia let out a low whistle. "Aunt Helen, let me get this straight. You're telling me that house is entirely in your name and they are unaware of this fact?" "That's correct." "And you have documented proof of every cent you've invested? Receipts, bank statements, everything?" "I have it all." "Oh my goodness." I could hear her typing rapidly on a keyboard. "Aunt Helen, this is an incredibly strong position. Your case is rock solid. What is it you want to do? You could legally evict them. You could sue for back rent. You could force a sale. Legally, they are essentially tenants without a formal lease." A small, grim smile touched my lips. It wasn't a happy smile, but a smile of impending justice. "I'll be at your office tomorrow at 8:30 a.m. "I'll be waiting, Aunt Helen. Bring every single piece of paper you have." I ended the call and took a deep breath. Then I dialed another number. "Hello?" An older man's voice, slightly groggy, answered. "Mr. Henderson, it's Helen Walsh. I'm so sorry to call so late." "Helen, is everything all right?" Mr. Henderson was a retired family friend who had been a real estate attorney for 40 years. He had handled Robert's estate and the paperwork for this very house. "I need you to look at some documents tomorrow regarding the house in the Willow Creek development." "Has something happened?" "Let's just say I'm preparing to assert my legal rights." I heard Mr. Henderson shift in his chair. "Are Mark and his wife causing you problems?" "You could say that." "Oh, Helen, I did advise you not to add anyone to that deed until you were completely certain." "I know, and you were right. That's why I'm calling. I need your professional opinion." "My office, 10 a.m. tomorrow. Bring everything." "I'll be there." I hung up and dialed the final number. This one was the most difficult. "Helen?" My dear friend Carol answered. "What's going on? It's late." Carol and I had been friends for 45 years. We were neighbors when our boys were young. She had been widowed a year before me. "Carol, is that spare room you mentioned a few weeks ago still available? The one with the garden view?" "Yes, of course. Why? Are you thinking of visiting?" "Can I move in tomorrow?" Silence. Then, "What's happened, my dear?" And for the first time all evening, my voice cracked. "I can't do it anymore, Carol. I can't keep being a ghost in a house that's supposed to be my home." "You come tomorrow," Carol said, her voice firm and warm. "Come anytime. I'll be waiting for you." I set the phone down. And then, yes, I allowed the tears to fall. But they weren't tears of sorrow. They were tears of profound relief, because after 3 years of quiet degradation, I was finally reclaiming my dignity. And they, all of them, toasting with expensive drinks while I was instructed to eat their scraps, were about to receive the most difficult lesson of their lives.
It was 10:40 p.m. According to their social media updates, they were just ordering coffee and dessert. I estimated they wouldn't be home until after 1 a.m. I had time. I returned to my room and seriously began to pack. But I didn't take everything, only my essential belongings, the things that were truly and undeniably mine. I had learned a hard lesson over these 3 years. They had grown accustomed to the idea that anything of mine was also theirs. My grandmother's handmade quilt, the silver necklace Robert gave me on our 20th anniversary, our wedding album, my favorite books, the espresso machine I brought from my old kitchen. Every item I placed into the suitcase felt like a piece of my own identity being restored. But there was something even more important to pack. I opened my bedside table drawer and retrieved a small, digital voice recorder I had purchased downtown 6 months prior. It cost me $50, and it was the best investment I had made in years. Because when people think you're invisible, they talk freely in front of you, as if you aren't even there. I connected the recorder to my laptop and began transferring the audio files to a small flash drive. File 1, dated months ago. Jessica's voice on the phone with her friend. It's like having a full-time house manager who doesn't need a salary. She cooks, cleans, handles the kids, and the best part is I don't have to feel guilty because she's family. Her laugh. I remembered that laugh. File 2, another date. A conversation between Jessica and Mark in their room. I was cleaning the hallway bathroom. Your mother is starting to get on my nerves, Mark. She has an opinion about everything. Parenting, groceries, everything. She's just trying to help, Jess. Helping is one thing, interfering is another. And when the kids listen to her more than they listen to me, it infuriates me. Mia told me the other day that Grandma's pancakes are better than mine. Do you know how that makes me feel? Jessica, please. No, Mark, seriously. When she's gone, your father's pension and the sale of her house, she served her purpose. Maybe it's time she started looking at nice retirement communities. I can't just ask her to leave. You don't have to ask her to leave. Just suggest that she might be happier, for her own good, in a place of her own. A long silence from my son, and then, I'll think about it. I'll think about it. My own son was going to think about suggesting I be moved to a retirement home? File 3, from a few months back. Jessica with her colleagues in the living room drinking wine while I prepared canapes in the kitchen. You have no idea how amazing our setup is. My mother-in-law handles all the domestic stuff so I can totally focus on my career. That's the real reason I got this promotion. I have 0 distractions at home. And she doesn't charge you rent. Rent? She lives with us for free. Plus, she sold her house and gave Mark the money for our down payment. It's her way of contributing. More laughter. You are brilliant. Make the most of it while she's still able. There were 15 files in total. 15 recordings of conversations where I was discussed as a convenience, a useful asset that would eventually outlive its usefulness. I copied everything to the flash drive and emailed a backup copy to myself for security. Then, I retrieved one more item from the drawer, my old smartphone, the one I used before Mark bought me a new one so you can use the apps more easily. What he didn't know was that I had kept the old one. And on that old phone, I had taken pictures. Pictures of crumpled receipts Jessica had thrown away, screenshots of her social media posts where she bragged about her beautiful home and her renovations, always using hashtags like my sanctuary and hard work pays off. Never our home. Never grateful for family. I transferred all the photos to the flash drive.
It was now 11:20 p.m. Their social media showed they were still at the restaurant, now having after-dinner drinks. I still had time. I went back downstairs quietly. The house was dark.
lit only by a single lamp in the hallway. I walked through the living room, pausing by each piece of furniture I had purchased. The large sectional sofa, $3,400. The glass-top dining table, $1,100. The custom bookshelf filled with Jessica's decorative items, $1,350. But I wasn't going to take any of it. It wasn't my style. I wasn't going to strip the house like a thief. I was only taking what was unquestionably mine: my clothing, my memories, my self-respect, and the legal deeds. I went back upstairs and finished closing the suitcase. It was heavy, but manageable. I sat on the edge of the bed and took out a notepad and a pen. I had to leave them a message. I couldn't just disappear without a word, but I would not give them the satisfaction of a long, emotional plea. I wrote in clear, firm handwriting, "Mark, for 3 years, I have lived in this house as an invisible servant. I cooked, cleaned, cared for your children, paid bills, and endured humiliation in silence. Tonight, while you celebrated Jessica's success and sent me a text to heat up your leftovers, I made a choice. I will no longer be the ghost in this family. You will find important documents on your bedside table. Read them carefully. We will speak soon with legal counsel present. I have loved you my entire life, but love does not mean allowing yourself to be erased. Mother." I folded the note and placed it on his pillow. Then, I took the legal envelope containing the property deeds. I attached a bright yellow sticky note to the front. It read, "This house has always been in my name. I have proof of every dollar I've invested, $139,950 to be exact. We will discuss this at the lawyer's office." I left the envelope prominently on Mark's nightstand. I checked the time, 11:50 p.m. Their last post showed they had just paid the bill. It was time to go. I carried my suitcase down the stairs. My 67-year-old knees protested, but they held firm. I paused at the front door. I took one last long look at this house I had helped to create, at the floors I had mopped countless times, the walls I had helped paint, the kitchen where I prepared thousands of unappreciated meals. I didn't feel sadness. I felt a soaring sense of liberation. I unlocked the door, stepped through, and closed it behind me. And for the first time in 3 years, I did not leave the key in the lock on the inside. I took it with me. After all, it was my house. I called for a ride from my phone. The driver, a kind-faced woman, helped me with my suitcase. "Going on a trip?" she asked as we pulled away from the curb. I looked out the window at the house growing smaller in the darkness. "No," I replied softly. "I'm coming back from one. I'm coming back to myself." As the car drove through the quiet streets of the neighborhood, I imagined the scene that was about to unfold. Mark, Jessica, and the children, returning home, their faces flushed with wine and merriment, turning on the lights, calling out for me to tell them all about their wonderful evening, only to be met with silence. Going upstairs, confused, finding my room empty, then their room, seeing the envelope, reading my note, and finally understanding the truth. I allowed myself a small, quiet smile in the dark of the car. Tonight, they would return to a house they believed was theirs, and I would sleep soundly for the first time in years in my friend Carol's guest room, knowing I had finally reclaimed my voice. Tomorrow, the legal process would begin, but tonight was for me, to quietly celebrate that the invisible woman had finally woken up and she was stronger than they ever knew. I wasn't there when they arrived home, but my grandson Leo told me everything a few days later when he came to see me at Carol's house, his young face streaked with tears. Let me recount that night as he described it to me, his small voice trembling. It was 1:15 in the morning when Mark's car pulled into the driveway.
The security guard at the community gate waved them through. They were laughing loudly, the stereo still playing. Jessica was leaning her head on Mark's shoulder. She had enjoyed several glasses of wine. Mark wasn't completely sober either. The children were drowsy in the back seat. They parked the car. Jessica stumbled slightly on the driveway, giggling. Mark caught her and they shared a kiss. "The new VP," he whispered, "my brilliant wife." "And you, the most supportive husband," she replied, clinging to his arm. They walked up the path to the front door. Mark fumbled for his keys. "Shh," she giggled. "Don't wake your mom." "Let her sleep," Mark replied. "She worked hard today keeping everything in order." They opened the door. The house was dark, save for the small light I always left on upstairs. "Mom!" Mark called out as he entered. His voice was slurred. Silence. Jessica flipped the switch for the living room light. And then they saw it. The room looked different. Not empty, but altered. The hand-woven rug I had brought from my old home was gone. The decorative throw pillows I had made were missing from the couch. The landscape paintings I loved were no longer on the walls. What the? Did your mom decide to redecorate? Mark walked into the kitchen and turned on the light. My expensive espresso machine was gone. The set of hand-painted mugs I collected was missing. The apron that always hung on the pantry door had disappeared. "Mom!" he called out again, louder now. "Where are you?" They hurried upstairs. Leo told me that's when the alcohol-induced haze began to lift. The door to my room was slightly ajar. Mark pushed it open and turned on the light.
The bed was neatly made, but it was empty. The closet door was open, revealing only bare hangers. The nightstand was clear of my books, my reading glasses, my small clock. It was as if I had never occupied that space. "What is going on?" Jessica muttered behind him. Mark rushed into the connected bathroom. My toiletries were gone. My toothbrush, my face cream, my simple lavender perfume. All of it was gone. He came back into the bedroom, and that's when he saw it. On his side of their bed, a folded piece of paper. He picked it up with unsteady hands. He unfolded it. Jessica read over his shoulder. "Leo told me." His father's face transformed as he read, from confusion to disbelief to sheer horror. "What does it say?" Jessica asked, her voice rising. "Did she leave? Did your mother actually leave?" But Mark didn't answer her. His eyes had found the legal envelope on his nightstand. He grabbed it, his fingers clumsy. He pulled out the deeds and read the name printed there in official type. "No," he whispered. "No, no, no." "What is it?" Jessica snatched the papers from him. Her eyes scanned the document once, twice. Her face lost all its color. This can't be right. The house, it's in her name, Mark," he said, his voice hollow. "The whole house. It was always in her name." But you paid for it. You told me you did." "She paid for it," Mark said, sinking onto the edge of the bed. "She sold her house. The $70,000, it all came from her." Jessica picked up the yellow sticky note attached to the deeds. $139,950, to be exact. $139,000? Jessica swayed on her feet. "Are you telling me your mother put over $100,000 into this house and we never transferred the deed? Oh my God, Mark, we never did the paperwork." The silence that followed was profound. Leo told me he was woken up by the shouting that erupted next. He came out of his room to find his parents in the living room, his mother screaming, his father with his head in his hands. "This isn't happening." Jessica paced back and forth like a trapped animal. "We've lived here for 3 years. 3 years. This is my home." "It's her home," Mark said, his voice dead. "Legally, it has always been her home." "Then you have to make her sign it over. She's your mother. She has to." "Has to?" Mark looked up, his eyes red-rimmed. "Like we had to treat her with basic decency? Like we had to include her in the celebration tonight?" Jessica was speechless. "We left her here alone. In her own house, we left her with instructions to eat our leftovers while we spent hundreds of dollars on a single meal. Mark, you're the one who let her send that text, that horrible text about the food in the fridge." Jessica's mouth fell open. She closed it, her face even paler. I didn't mean anything by it. It was just a what? A joke? Was humiliating my mother funning to you? For the first time in 3 years, my son was defending my honor, but it was far too late. Leo was crying on the stairs, listening to it all. Mia woke up and started calling for me. Where's Grandma? I want my grandma. Mark tried calling my number again and again. I had blocked his number for the time being. He sent text after text. Mom, please answer. Mom, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. Mom, we can fix this. Please. Mom, don't do this. None of the messages were delivered because at that very moment, I was at Carol's house, sipping herbal tea, wrapped in a soft blanket that smelled of fresh air, drifting into the deepest, most peaceful sleep I had experienced in 3 years. Jessica tried one last desperate tactic that night. We'll call a lawyer first thing in the morning. I'm sure we can challenge this. We've lived here for 3 years. That gives us rights, squatters' rights or something. Mark looked at her with a mixture of pity and disgust. You still don't understand, do you? She has everything documented, every single dollar, every receipt. And it's worse than that. He ran his hands over his face. She's right. We treated her terribly. I let you treat her terribly. He stood up and walked toward the children's rooms. Leo told me his father hugged him tightly that night and cried. He cried like Leo hadn't seen him cry since his grandfather Robert passed away. I ruined everything, he told his 10-year-old son. I lost Grandma because I was a fool.
That night, no one slept in the house they had believed was theirs, the house that had always been mine. And while they wandered through the rooms, now absent of my presence, trying to comprehend how their world had collapsed in a single evening, I slept soundly. Because sometimes the most powerful statement is silence, and sometimes disappearing is the only way to make yourself truly seen. I woke up at 7 a.m. at Carol's house. Sunlight was streaming through the window. I could hear birds singing outside. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee wafted up from the kitchen. It had been years since I had woken up without a knot of anxiety in my stomach. I stretched in the comfortable bed. No one was waiting downstairs demanding breakfast. No one would inspect my cleaning. No one would give me orders disguised as requests. I was free. My phone showed 38 notifications, 25 missed calls from Mark, numerous text messages, a few from Jessica, several from numbers I didn't recognize, likely other relatives who had already heard the news. I didn't open any of them. Instead, I opened a different social media app, one I rarely used, filled with contacts from my past life, friends from my gardening club, former neighbors, distant cousins. I had over 400 friends who seldom saw my posts because I never posted. Until that morning. I typed with fingers that felt surprisingly steady. After 3 years of allowing myself to be made invisible by my own family, I've learned that self-respect isn't selfish. It's essential for survival. I tapped post and closed the app. I went downstairs for breakfast. Carol had prepared my favorite, chilaquiles with green sauce, refried beans, and coffee with cinnamon. How'd you sleep? She asked, pouring me a glass of orange juice. Like I haven't slept in a decade, I replied. And what's the plan for today? Now comes the legal part, I said, serving myself a portion. At 8:30 sharp, I was at Amelia's law office. My niece greeted me with a warm, strong hug and a fresh cup of coffee. Aunt Helen, you are absolutely legendary. I was up half the night thinking about your case. Did you bring the documents? I placed the legal envelope, the notebook of receipts, the flash drive with the recordings, and the photos on her desk. Amelia spread everything out like a general surveying a battlefield. This is incredible, Aunt Helen. This is a perfect case. Your documentation is impeccable. She reviewed each paper, her eyes shining with professional excitement. Deeds in your name, proof of financial contribution, bank records, and even audio evidence. She plugged the flash drive into her computer and listened to a few short clips. Her expression shifted from professional assessment to personal outrage. It's like having a full-time house manager who doesn't need a salary. When she's gone, she's served her purpose. Amelia clenched her jaw. Aunt Helen, with this, we can pursue any outcome you desire.
immediate eviction, a lawsuit for back rent, compensation for emotional distress. You tell me what you need, and we will make it happen. What I need, I said slowly, is for them to understand the magnitude of what they have lost, for them to feel a fraction of the pain I felt, and for them to learn that love cannot exist without mutual respect. Amelia nodded. Then we will give them a lesson they will never, ever forget. We spent the next 3 hours mapping out our legal strategy. Formal letters, legal notices, property valuations, calculations of unpaid rent based on fair market rates. At 11:15 a.m., Amelia sent the first official document, a legal summons, to Mr. Mark Walsh and Mrs. Jessica Reed Walsh. You are hereby required to attend a meeting at the offices of Henderson Legal Associates on Tuesday, April 22nd at 10 a.m. to discuss matters pertaining to the property located at 2847 Willow Creek Drive, specifically regarding ownership and occupancy. Your attendance is mandatory. Please bring government-issued identification. The email was sent. Meanwhile, my phone continued to vibrate incessantly. Finally, around noon, I read some of Mark's messages. Mom, please, we need to talk. This is a huge misunderstanding. I never knew the house was in your name. I never meant to disrespect you. The kids are asking for you. Leo is crying. Mia doesn't understand what's happening. Mom, you're my mother. We can't end our relationship like this. From Jessica, Helen, I think things are getting blown out of proportion. If my text last night upset you, I apologize. It was a misunderstanding. Mark is devastated. The kids are too. Please, can't we discuss this like reasonable adults? I noticed the shift in tone from commanding Grandma to a pleading Helen, but I did not reply.
Instead, I checked the social media post I had made earlier. It already had over 200 reactions and dozens of comments. I began to read them. Helen, I had no idea you were going through this. You always seem so strong. I'm so glad you found your strength. My old neighbor, Barbara. My dear friend, I've been living with my daughter for 5 years. Your words resonate so deeply with me. You made me cry. Thank you for sharing. Margaret from my gardening club. My mother endured a similar situation. She ended up with stress-related health issues. I wish she had possessed your courage. A cousin I hadn't spoken to in a decade. This is so powerful. Every woman deserves respect, not just the scraps from the table. An elderly friend from my youth. The comments continued, one after another, from women sharing their own stories of being taken for granted, of being used as unpaid labor, of losing their homes and their sense of self. My simple post had become a gathering place for voices that had been silenced for too long. At 3 in the afternoon, my brother called. Helen, what in the world is going on? Mark called me, sobbing. He says you've left the house. I left my house, I corrected him. The house where I was living as an unpaid domestic employee. But he's your son. This is about family. Family doesn't systematically humiliate you, Thomas. Family doesn't make you feel invisible. Family doesn't exclude you from a celebration and then text you instructions to eat their leftovers. Silence on the other end of the line. They did that? I told him everything, every detail of the last 3 years. When I finished, my brother was quiet for a long moment. I'm sorry, he finally said. I thought you were happy there. I thought it was a good arrangement for everyone. Everyone thought that because I smiled and never complained, but a smile doesn't always mean a person is happy. At 5 p.m., Thomas's wife called Mark. He didn't answer. She left a voicemail that he later played for me. Mark, you have made a catastrophic error in judgment. Your mother is a woman of immense integrity, and you treated her appallingly. Now you must face the consequences and learn from this. The cracks were beginning to show. The Whiter family, which often automatically sides with the children, was starting to question their actions. At 7 p.m., Carol's phone rang. It was a neighbor from my old community. Helen, I just wanted to tell you that everyone knows what happened, and you are 100% in the right. I saw you every single day, taking out the garbage, washing their cars, doing the grocery shopping, and they never even said thank you. How does everyone know? I asked. Jessica went to the grocery store this afternoon. Her eyes were puffy from crying. When Mrs. Gable asked her what was wrong, she just exploded. She blamed you for everything, said you were ungrateful, that you abandoned them, that you were being selfish. I felt my temper flare. And what did the other neighbors say? The woman chuckled. Mrs. Gable told her that you were the legal owner and had every right to do as you pleased, that she would have done the same thing long ago, and the other ladies said even stronger things. Jessica practically ran out of the store. For the first time in 3 years, the neighbors who had silently witnessed my suffering were speaking up on my behalf. That night before bed, I checked my post again. It had over 400 reactions and hundreds of comments. And there was more. Over 30 women had sent me private messages telling me their own stories. Stories of mistreated mothers, forgotten grandmothers, exploited relatives. One woman wrote, "Helen, thank you for speaking out. You've given me the courage to tell my daughter I'm moving out. I'm looking at apartments tomorrow." Another said, "I've been watching my grandkids for free for 6 years while my daughter-in-law travels. After reading your story, I'm telling her enough is enough." My story, my pain, my decision to break the silence was giving other women the strength to find their own voices. And that, more than any property deed or financial settlement, filled my heart with purpose. Because it turned out my act of self-preservation wasn't just personal, it was collective. Mark texted me at 11 p.m. "Mom, we got the lawyer's letter. Please don't do this. We're family." For the first time in over 48 hours, I replied, "Family is built on a foundation of respect, Mark, not just on shared DNA and a sense of obligation. I will see you on Tuesday at the lawyer's office." Then I turned my phone off for the night. The storm was just beginning, and I, for the first time in years, was the one holding the lightning.
Sunday felt like the longest day of my life. Mark showed up at Carol's house at 9 in the morning. He rang the doorbell repeatedly until Carol answered. "You cannot see her," Carol said firmly, blocking the doorway. "She's my mother. Please, I need to talk to her. She is a woman who is finally getting some rest after 3 years of being used, and I will not let you disturb her peace." But I had heard the voices from upstairs. I came down the stairs slowly. Mark looked terrible. Deep, dark circles under his eyes, unshaven, wearing the same wrinkled shirt from 2 days prior. He looked like he had aged a decade in just 72 hours. "Mom!" His voice broke when he saw me. "Mark, we can talk. Come in." Carol looked at me, and I nodded. "It's all right." We sat in Carol's cozy living room. She stayed nearby, a silent sentinel. Mark didn't seem to know how to begin. He ran his hands through his messy hair. He bit his lip. Finally, he spoke. "I never knew the house was only in your name." "I know." Why didn't you ever tell me?" That question, that damned question. "I did tell you, Mark. For the first year, I reminded you every few weeks. 'Son, we need to go to the lawyer to finalize the deed.' Do you remember what you would say?" He looked down at the floor. "Later, Mom. We're so busy with work right now." "Next month, Mom. There's no hurry. We're family. It doesn't matter." And then you stopped responding when I brought it up, and I stopped asking. Because a part of me, the part that survived losing your father and raising you alone, knew I needed that protection. "Protection from me? Your own son?" "Protection," I corrected, gently but firmly, "from becoming what I became, a servant in a house I owned." Mark buried his face in his hands. "I never wanted you to feel that way." But I did feel that way, every single day for 3 years. "Jessica, she can be difficult, but she's not a monster." "Mark," I said, my voice steady, "do you know how much money I have invested in that property?" He swallowed hard. "The note said $139,950. "Yes. And do you know where that money came from? From the sale of your house. From the sale of the house where your father and I lived for 41 years, where we raised you, where we celebrated every birthday, every holiday, where your father took his last breath, holding my hand. My voice wavered slightly. I sold my past, Mark. I sold the last physical connection to your father, and I did it for you. Mark began to cry, thick, heavy tears rolling down his face and onto his hands. Mom, do you know how much you paid toward the mortgage each month? $500. And do you know what the full mortgage payment was? Silence. $1,450. I paid the other $950 every single month from my $1,650 pension. Do you understand what that means? He looked up confused. It means that after paying for your house, I had $700 left each month for everything else, my clothes, my medications, any personal expenses. $700 a month, while Jessica was spending $400 on a single handbag. Mark turned pale. I didn't know that. You didn't know because you never asked. You assumed I was fine. You assumed I was content, that taking care of your children and cleaning your home was a sufficient purpose for my life. Mom, I stood up and went to my purse. I took out the spiral-bound notebook. I placed it on the coffee table in front of him. Open it. With trembling hands, Mark opened the notebook and began to read. Page after page of carefully taped receipts, printed bank statements, notes in my handwriting. Refrigerator, $1,950. Washer dryer, $2,600. Living room set, $3,500. Bathroom renovation, $7,200. His voice was a whisper. My God, keep reading. He turned to the final pages, the monthly calculations, the 36 months of contributions, the final, staggering total. Over $139,000, he whispered. And that doesn't include, I added coldly, the 3 meals a day I cooked, the cleaning, the childcare, the laundry, the ironing. If we put a fair market value on that domestic labor, it would be another $45,000 at least. Mark closed the notebook. He was shaking. I don't have $149,000 to pay you back, Mom. I don't. I know you don't. I know you have very little in savings. So, what do you want? The house? Are you going to throw us out on the street? And there it was, the central question. I took a deep, slow breath. I want, I said, for you to understand what you have lost. It isn't just a house. It isn't just money. You lost your mother. You lost me. I haven't lost you. You're right here. When was the last time you asked me how I was feeling, how I was sleeping, if my arthritis was bothering me, if I missed your father, if I felt lonely? Silence. When was the last time you hugged me and it wasn't a quick passing gesture? When was the last time you sat down with me just to have a coffee and talk? When was the last time you truly looked me in the eye? More silence. I became a utility, Mark, not your mother, and you allowed it to happen. I'm sorry, he sobbed. I am so, so sorry. I know you are, but sorry doesn't give me back 3 years of my life. It doesn't restore my dignity. I then took the flash drive from my pocket. I placed it on the table next to the notebook. What is that? He asked, wiping his eyes. Listen to it when you get home, but listen to it alone. Jessica cannot be there. Why? Because if you listen to it together, you will likely end your marriage tonight. And even though Jessica made my life a misery, your children do not deserve a broken home. Mark picked up the flash drive as if it were a live coal. Mom, what's on this? The truth. 15 audio files of conversations where Jessica talks about me when she thinks I can't hear, where she discusses plans to have me moved out, where she and her friends make jokes at my expense.
I watched his face crumble. Listen to it, all of it, and then you decide if you want to meet at the lawyer's office on Tuesday with your wife, or if you would prefer to speak with me, just the two of us, first. He stood up, unsteady on his feet. He picked up the flash drive and the notebook. Mom, Tuesday, 10 a.m., at Mr. Henderson's office. You decide who accompanies you. He walked to the door. He stopped, his hand on the knob. Is there anything I can do to fix this? Anything at all? Yes, I said. You can learn, you can change, and you can teach your children that their elders are not furniture, that their grandmother was not a servant, and that love and respect are not optional in a family. He left without another word. Carol came and sat beside me, holding me as I finally let my own tears fall. Did I do the right thing? I asked her, my voice muffled. I don't know, she said softly, but you did what was necessary.
That afternoon, Leo came to Carol's house by himself. He rang the doorbell, and when I opened it, he threw his arms around my waist, crying, "Grandma, I miss you so much." I held him tight, breathing in the familiar, comforting scent of his hair. My sweet boy, my dear Leo, who is blameless in all of this, I have missed you terribly. Why did you go away? I knelt down so I could look him in the eye. Sometimes, Leo, when people treat you poorly for a very long time, you have to walk away to remind them that you are important too. But we don't treat you poorly. I know, my love. You and your sister love me, and I love you. But your parents forgot how to show me the proper respect. Dad is really, really sad, and Mom cries all the time now. I know. Are you coming back? I looked into his earnest, 10-year-old eyes, full of confusion and innocence. I don't know, Leo, but what I do know is that I love you more than anything, and that none of this is your fault. Do you understand that? He nodded, wiping his tears on the sleeve of his shirt. We spent 2 wonderful hours together. We ate the cookies Carol had baked. I read him a chapter from his favorite book. We played a board game, just like we used to. When Mark came to pick him up later, my son's face was a mask of devastation. Did you listen to it? I asked from the doorway. He nodded, unable to speak. All of it? He nodded again. Then I will see you on Tuesday. I did not sleep well that night. I knew the following day would determine the future of our family, because on Tuesday, in that lawyer's office, it wouldn't just be the ownership of a house on the line. It would be decided whether a fractured family could find a path to healing, or if some breaks are simply too profound to mend. On Tuesday morning at 9:45, I arrived at Henderson Legal Associates. Amelia was with me, her leather portfolio filled with documents. She looked every bit the powerful attorney. Dark-tailored suit, professional heels, her hair pulled back. "Ready, Aunt Helen?" she asked as we walked up the steps of the classic brick building. "I'm ready." Mr. Henderson welcomed us into his office, a space of dark wood and shelves lined with legal books. It smelled of old paper and polished furniture. "Helen," he greeted me, giving my shoulder a reassuring squeeze. "I'm deeply sorry that it has come to this." "So am I, old friend, but here we are." We sat down. The large clock on the wall read 9:58. At 10:02, we heard footsteps on the stairs. The door opened. Mark walked in first. He was wearing a dark suit and tie, as if attending a solemn occasion. His eyes were sunken and red. And behind him was Jessica, but not the confident, polished Jessica I knew. This Jessica wore a simple, modest dress, flat shoes, minimal makeup, her hair pulled back into a plain ponytail. She looked like a student who had been called to the principal's office. She saw me and immediately dropped her gaze. Interesting. "Good morning," Mark said, his voice hoarse. "Good morning," I replied. They sat on the opposite side of the large table. Mr. Henderson sat at the head. Amelia began placing documents on the table with precise, deliberate movements. "All right," Mr. Henderson began, putting on his reading glasses. "We are gathered here today to resolve a matter of property ownership and occupancy.
Mrs. Helen Walsh is the legal owner of the property located at— We know, Jessica interrupted, her voice tight. We are aware of the situation. Amelia raised her eyebrow. Oh, are you? Are you aware that my client has invested $139,950 in that property? Yes. And that you have been residing there for 3 years without a formal lease agreement? Jessica's fists clenched in her lap. Yes. And that my client has the full legal right to seek immediate eviction, pursue payment for back rent, and file a lawsuit for emotional damages? At that, Jessica looked up. Her eyes were glistening with unshed tears. Yes, we know everything. A heavy silence filled the room. Mark cleared his throat. Mom, he said, looking directly at me, I listened to the recordings. All of them. All 15. It took me hours, and each one felt like a punch to the gut. Jessica closed her eyes. I didn't know. No, Mark cut her off with a sharpness I had never heard from him. You do not get to minimize this, not now. He turned back to me. Mom, I heard the way she spoke about you to her friends. I heard the mockery. I heard the plans. He ran his hands over his face. I heard her talk about convincing me to put you in a retirement home when you were no longer useful. Jessica let out a soft sob. I didn't mean it. It was frustration talking. You didn't mean it? Mark's voice rose. There's a recording from last November where you tell your mother, and I quote, as soon as the old lady starts needing too much care, we'll find a nice, affordable facility and keep the whole house for ourselves. You didn't mean that either? Jessica's face completely crumpled. Amelia, sensing the moment, opened her laptop. Would you like to hear the certified audio files here, in the presence of your legal counsel? I have them ready. No, Jessica said quickly. That won't be necessary. I believe it is necessary, Amelia said, her voice like steel. Because my client doesn't only possess audio evidence, she also has signed statements from neighbors regarding your treatment of her. She has photographs of demeaning communications. She has a detailed log of psychological pressure and financial exploitation. Jessica went pale. Financial exploitation, Amelia repeated, is a criminal offense, particularly when the victim is a senior citizen. We could not only secure the property, Mrs. Walsh, we could pursue criminal charges. No, Jessica stood up abruptly. Please, that's not needed. I'll do anything. Sit down, Mark commanded. Jessica collapsed back into her chair, trembling. Mr. Henderson, who had been observing the exchange in silence, spoke in a grave tone. Jessica, I have known Helen for more than 30 years. She is a woman of profound decency, and you, forgive my bluntness, have treated her abominably. Jessica buried her face in her hands. I know, she moaned. I know, and I'm sorry. I'm so terribly sorry. You're sorry, I finally spoke. My voice was calmer than I expected. Are you sorry for humiliating me, or are you sorry that you were caught? She looked up, her mascara starting to run. Both. I'm sorry for both. She took a shaky, ragged breath. Jessica continued, wiping her tears with a trembling hand. I grew up with very little, Helen. My mother worked 2 jobs just to keep food on the table. When I finally achieved success, when I got my career and my title, I think I became the very thing I used to resent, the kind of person who looked down on people like my mother. Her voice broke completely. And the worst part is that I did it to you, to the woman who helped us buy our home, who cared for my children, who gave us a stable foundation. I was my worst self with you. Mark looked at her with a complex mixture of pain and disappointment.
Why? He asked. Why would you treat her that way, knowing what your own mother went through? Because I was afraid, Jessica admitted between sobs. Afraid the children would love you more. Afraid Mark would see that you were a better parent, a better person in every way. I was terrified of being seen as the inadequate daughter-in-law who needed her husband's mother to manage her household. She closed her eyes. So I put you down to feel superior, to remind myself that I was the lady of the house, the one in charge, the successful one. And you were just the grandmother living with us. She turned to me, her eyes red and swollen. But it wasn't my house. It was your house, the one you paid for, the one you maintained. And I was so arrogant, so blind, so incredibly cruel that I couldn't see it until you were gone. Amelia looked at me, waiting for my signal. I knew she was prepared to dismantle them legally. She had all the ammunition she needed. But something in Jessica's confession, in her utterly broken demeanor, made me pause. "Does your mother know how you've treated me?" I asked. Jessica shook her head. "If she found out, she would be horrified. She has always told me, treat your mother-in-law with the same kindness you'd want from me." "That is wise advice," I said coolly. "It's a pity you chose not to follow it." "I know." Mr. Henderson tapped his fingers lightly on his desk. "Well, we must address the practical resolution. Helen, you have 3 primary legal options." Amelia laid out documents on the table. Option 1, immediate eviction. They have 30 days to vacate the premises. You regain full possession of your property. Jessica paled. Option 2, full purchase. They pay you the full $139,950 within a 90-day period. The deed is legally transferred. The house becomes theirs. Mark shook his head. "We can't possibly come up with that kind of money. It's impossible." Option 3, Amelia said, and she looked directly at me. This was the option we had designed together. A legally binding property and cohabitation agreement. "What does that entail?" Mark asked. I took a deep breath. This was the moment of decision. It means we legally divide the ownership of the house. I retain 60%, you receive 40%. This will be officially recorded with the county. Jessica frowned, confused. 60-40? That means the house is still more yours than ours. Yes, but you will have a legal stake. You will not be homeless, and I will not be moving back in. "Where will you live?" Mark asked. "I am staying where I am, but my 60% ownership comes with specific conditions." Amelia unfolded another document. "Helen will lease her share of the property to a tenant family, whom she will personally select. They will live in the house with you. You will share the common areas. They will pay a monthly rent of $850, which will be paid directly to Helen." Jessica's eyes widened in disbelief. You want us to live with strangers?" "I want you to understand what it feels like to share your personal space with people you did not choose. I want you to experience the lack of privacy, the constant need for politeness, the feeling of your home not being entirely your own." Mark understood immediately. "Like you felt living with us." "Exactly." "And the other condition?" he asked. "Family therapy. Mark, you and I will attend therapy together. Once a week for 6 months. I will pay for the first 10 sessions. You will pay for the remainder. Just the 2 of us. Without Jessica." My son had tears in his eyes. "You would do that? After everything, you would still try to fix things with me?" "You are my son," I said, my voice trembling with emotion. "You made terrible mistakes. You failed me profoundly. But you are my son, and I will not give up on you without a final, sincere effort." Mark stood up, walked around the table, and knelt down in front of my chair. "Forgive me, Mom. Please, forgive me." I held him as we both cried. Jessica watched from her chair, utterly destroyed. "And me?" she asked in a small, broken voice. "Is there anything I can do to ever earn your forgiveness?" I looked at her directly. "You can start by treating the tenants I place in your house with kindness and respect. You can start by being genuinely grateful for what you still have. And you can start by teaching my grandchildren that respect is not an option, but a requirement." She nodded, wiping her tears away. "I will. I promise you I will." Mr. Henderson prepared the documents. The property division, 60-40, the lease agreement for my portion, protective legal clauses, everything was made official and legally binding. When we left that office 2 hours later, I was a free woman, and they had a long, difficult lesson to live with every single day. Because sometimes true justice isn't about vengeance. Sometimes it's about ensuring that people have to live with the direct consequences of their actions. 2 weeks after that meeting, I was having tea with Maria Flores, a warm, kind-hearted woman in her late 40s. A widow for 2 years, she had been struggling to find a stable, affordable place to live after selling her small condo to settle her late husband's medical debts. "Mrs. Walsh," Maria said, her eyes hopeful, "are you certain about renting to us? With 2 active boys, our household can be quite loud." I am completely certain, and please call me Helen. I explained the entire situation to her. I held nothing back. Maria needed to know the full context. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. So, she said finally, you want my family and me to be part of a life lesson for your son and daughter-in-law. I corrected gently, you to have a beautiful, safe home for your family. And yes, I hope that through this, my relatives learn something about empathy and gratitude. Maria smiled. That seems fair. When can we move in?
A week later, on a sunny Monday morning, the moving truck arrived at 2847 Willow Creek Drive. I went to oversee the move-in. It was my right as the majority owner. Jessica opened the door. When she saw me, her face cycled through a rapid series of emotions, but she managed a strained smile. "Helen, please, come in." "Helen," I confirmed. "Call me Helen." "Helen," she repeated, swallowing hard. Behind me stood Maria and her two sons, Carlos and Diego. The boys looked around the house with wide, impressed eyes. "This place is amazing," Carlos murmured. "It's really nice," Diego agreed. Mark came out from the kitchen. He looked better than he had at the lawyer's office, but the weight of guilt was still visible in his eyes. "Mom," he greeted me. Then he turned to Maria. "You must be Mrs. Flores?" "Maria, please," she said, extending her hand. "Thank you so much for this opportunity." "We didn't exactly have a choice," Jessica muttered under her breath, almost inaudibly. Almost. I gave her a direct look. She looked down, chastened. "I'm sorry, that was uncalled for. Welcome to your new home." I showed them their assigned rooms according to our legal agreement, a large master bedroom for Maria, and the boys would share the other large bedroom. The kitchen, living room, and dining room were designated as shared spaces. That first evening, Maria prepared dinner. Her homemade chicken mole filled the house. Jessica came downstairs looking confused. "What's that smell?" she asked. "Dinner," Maria said cheerfully. "I made plenty if you'd all like to join us." I watched Jessica's face, that instinctive flash of, "This is my kitchen," of, "I didn't authorize this." But she bit back the words. "Thank you," she said, the words clearly difficult for her. "It smells wonderful." They all ate together that night. Mark, Jessica, Leo, Mia, Maria, Carlos, and Diego. A table full of people who were practically strangers, learning to coexist. Leo and Carlos bonded over a video game console. Mia and Diego discovered a shared love for drawing. The children, in their beautiful innocence, built bridges without effort. But Jessica picked at her food in silence, visibly uncomfortable in her own dining room. And I, sitting in Carol's comfortable living room several miles away, imagined the scene and smiled. The weeks turned into months. Mark and I began our therapy sessions. The first session was emotionally brutal. We both cried through most of it. "I let her disappear," he told the therapist. "I let our relationship erode because it was easier to keep Jessica happy than to stand up for you. And I let it happen because I was terrified of being alone. I was afraid that if I spoke up, I would be cast out with nowhere to go." Our therapist, Dr. Evans, listened with compassion. "Fear often makes us tolerate the intolerable, but the fact that you are both here shows there is still a foundation to rebuild upon." And slowly, session by session, we began that reconstruction. Mark started calling me regularly, not for logistical reasons, but just to talk. He'd ask how my day was, if I'd seen any good movies, if I needed anything from the store. Simple, caring gestures he hadn't bothered with in years. One afternoon, he showed up at Carol's with a beautiful potted orchid. "No reason, just because you're my mom and I love you." I cried over that orchid for an hour. Meanwhile, in the house at Willow Creek Drive, the new living arrangement created many revealing moments. Maria updated me during our weekly phone calls. "Last Tuesday, Jessica got upset because Carlos used the last of the milk for his cereal," Maria told me, laughing. "I politely reminded her that we pay our rent on time and are entitled to use the groceries we all contribute to." She went quiet and hasn't mentioned it since. And Mark? Mark has been kind.
He helped Carlos with his science project over the weekend. I think he's genuinely trying to learn. There were also moments of unexpected grace. Diego was struggling with his history homework. Jessica, who had a degree in history, sat down with him and patiently helped him for over an hour without anyone asking her to. "Thank you so much, Mrs. Jessica," Diego had said, beaming. And Jessica, Maria told me, had gone to her room and cried afterward because it was the first genuinely heartfelt thank you she had received in a very long time. The children, of course, were the easiest part of this new equation. Mia had found a new, older brother figure in Carlos. Leo had a new friend in Diego. In their simple and honest way, they were healing wounds the adults had created.
One Sunday, about 6 weeks after Maria and her sons moved in, Mark invited me over for a family dinner. "At the house," he said. "Maria is making your favorite, paella. The kids are begging to see you." I hesitated. "Mom," Mark pleaded, "please, the children miss you so much, and I need you to see that I am changing." I went. Walking back into that house made my heart pound. I hadn't set foot in it since the night I left. It looked the same, yet completely different. Carlos's soccer trophy was on the bookshelf. Diego's art projects were taped to the refrigerator. There was life and noise and laughter. "Grandma!" Mia shrieked, running to hug me. "You came!" Leo hugged me too, now almost as tall as my shoulder. "I missed you, Grandma." Maria greeted me with a warm embrace. "Welcome, Helen. Your table, your family." Jessica was in the kitchen. She saw me and nervously wiped her hands on a dish towel. "Helen," she said, "thank you for coming." "Thank you for the invitation." We looked at each other, two women who had been through a war. Not yet friends, but no longer enemies. "The paella smells incredible," I said. "Maria taught me her recipe," Jessica admitted. "Hers is much better than mine." It was the first time I had ever heard her admit that someone else was better at something. We all sat down to eat, 11 people around the large table. Carlos told a funny story about school. Diego showed us a magic trick. Leo proudly displayed his report card. Mia presented a drawing she had made of our new extended family. We were all in the picture, Maria and her boys, Mark, Jessica, their children, and me, right in the center with a small, carefully drawn crown on my head. "You're the queen, Grandma," Mia explained, "because you're the one who made us all a family." I broke down then. I cried in front of everyone. Mark took my hand. "Thank you, Mom, for not giving up on us." "Thank you," I whispered back, "for learning to see me again." After dinner, Jessica asked to speak with me privately. We went out into the backyard, the same patio where I used to hang the laundry to dry. "Helen," she began, her voice unsteady, "I know I have no right to ask you for anything. I know the pain I caused you is unforgivable, but I want you to know that I am in therapy myself now. I'm working on my insecurities, my need for control, all of it. I'm glad to hear that." And I meant it. "Maria," she continued, "she's taught me a lot about humility, about gratitude. She lost her husband, she lost her home, and she still finds joy in every day. She's thankful for what she has. And I had everything, and I was never satisfied." She wiped a tear from her cheek. "I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm just asking you to allow me the chance to become a better person, to let you see that I am trying." I looked at her. This woman who had made me feel invisible, who had planned to discard me, who had humiliated me for 3 long years. But I also saw a woman who was broken, trying desperately to reassemble herself into someone better. "Forgiveness," I told her, "isn't something you request. It's something you earn. Through consistent action, over time, through demonstrable change. I know, and I am willing to put in the work. Then I am willing to watch and see if you can achieve it."
Her face lit up with a fragile hope. Really? Really? But Jessica, if you ever revert to treating anyone in that house with disrespect, if you ever become the cruel person you were to me, this entire arrangement is terminated. Is that understood? Understood. 6 months later, in the crisp air of November, the changes were significant and real. My relationship with Mark was rebuilt. It wasn't the same as before. It was more honest, more respectful. We saw each other regularly. We talked on the phone. He genuinely valued my opinion. Jessica had improved dramatically. She was still herself, but a softer, more considerate version. She had learned to bite her tongue, to express gratitude, to share. One day, she called me. "Helen, could we meet for lunch? Just the two of us?" I agreed, curious. We met at a quiet cafe. "I want to make you an offer," Jessica said, taking a folder from her bag. "I've been saving and I've spoken with the bank. I can secure a loan." She slid the papers across the table to me. "I want to buy your 60% share of the house. I've structured a 5-year payment plan with monthly installments of $2,400. It's all calculated here with fair interest." I was silent, reading through the detailed proposal. "Why?" I asked. "Because it's the right thing to do," she said simply. "It's your house, your investment, your sacrifice. And we've been living there, benefiting from your generosity, for too long." "I thought you wanted to keep the house without paying for it," I said, a slight, ironic smile touching my lips. The Jessica from a year ago wanted that. The Jessica sitting here today wants to earn her possessions. She wants to pay her debts. She wants to be able to sleep at night without a guilty conscience. I examined the numbers. It was a fair, even generous offer. And Maria and her sons? We've asked them to stay on as our official tenants with a proper, fair lease if you agreed to the sale. They've accepted. The children are like siblings now. And Maria? Maria has become a true friend to me, my external conscience. I smiled. "All right," I said. "I accept your offer." Jessica let out a long, relieved breath. "Thank you. Thank you for giving me this chance, for not destroying us when you held all the power to do so. I gain nothing from your destruction, Jessica. I gain everything from seeing my family heal."
Today, a year and 4 months after that fateful night I packed my suitcase and left, I am sitting in my own cozy, rented apartment in a friendly neighborhood. I am 68 years old. I teach a weekly pottery class at the local community center. I attend a monthly book club. I take long walks with Carol every morning. Mark visits me every Sunday. Sometimes he brings the children, sometimes he comes alone, and we cook a meal together, just like we did when he was young. Jessica sends me messages occasionally, photos of the kids, a new recipe she's tried, small gestures that show she is trying. Maria and I have become close friends. Her boys call me Auntie Helen. The $850 monthly rent from Maria, combined with the $2,400 from Jessica's payment plan, allows me to live with independence, security, and profound peace. Did I get my old family back? Not entirely. Some fractures leave permanent scars. But I gained something more valuable. I got myself back. I reclaimed my name, my voice, my right to be treated with basic human respect. And I learned that sometimes the most vital love is not the love you give to others, but the love you must give to yourself. Last week, Mia gave me a new drawing. It was a picture of me, standing tall, holding a suitcase, with a bright sun shining overhead. In her careful 7-year-old handwriting, she had written, "My Grandma Helen, the bravest person I know, because she knew when to walk away and when to open her heart again." I had it framed and placed it on my living room wall, because that little girl understood something many adults never learn. Staying in a place where you are being diminished is not love. It's a harmful habit. And breaking that habit, even when it's frightening, even when it feels selfish,
is the greatest act of self-love you can ever perform. Now I sleep peacefully in my own bed, in my own space, in my own life. And when I look into the mirror, I finally see what I was searching for during those 3 lost years. A woman who is seen, a woman who is valued, a woman who is free. It's a Sunday afternoon. I'm at the park with Leo and Mia. We bought ice cream cones and found a bench under a large, shady tree. "Grandma," says Leo, now 12 and his voice starting to change, "do you ever regret leaving that night?" "Never," I answer without a moment's hesitation. "Not for a single second? Not even a little bit?" Mia asks, ice cream dripping on her chin. "Not even a little bit, because leaving that night was what saved me. It reminded me of who I was before I became invisible." Mia climbs onto my lap, even though she's getting too big for it. "And are you happy now?" I hug her tight. Now, I am truly happy, because I am exactly where I choose to be, not where I am merely tolerated. Mark walks up carrying 2 cups of coffee. He hands one to me and sits beside us on the bench. "The kids asked if we can make this a new Sunday tradition. Park, ice cream, time with Grandma." "I would love that," I say. My son smiles, that sincere, heartfelt smile I hadn't seen for years. "Mom, I know I say it all the time, but thank you. Thank you for not giving up on me, for teaching me the most difficult, most important lesson of my life." "You're welcome, son." You know what my therapist said last week? "What?" She said what you did wasn't an act of revenge. She called it restorative justice, because you made us face the consequences of our actions without seeking to destroy us. You gave us a chance to grow. Your therapist is a very wise woman. We sat there under that tree watching the children play, and I thought of all the women who had written to me after my social media post. The ones who found the strength to leave toxic situations. The ones who set firm boundaries. The ones who demanded their dignity back. And I understood that my story was never just my own. It belonged to every person who has ever felt invisible, used, or taken for granted. Because true wealth isn't measured by what you own, but by what you refuse to allow anyone to take from you. And I, Helen Margaret Walsh, 68 years old, got my soul back, and no one will ever take it from me again. If this story touched your heart, if it made you think about your own self-worth, or if you know someone who needs to hear it, please let me know in the comments below. Tell me where you're watching from. And if you've ever faced the choice between staying where you are hurting or leaving to save yourself, hit the like button. It lets me know these stories matter. And please, subscribe to the channel Winds of Thought. Here we share powerful true stories of courage and redemption, of people who chose to respect themselves above all else. Because in the end, the most critical lesson is this: love without respect isn't love at all. It's just a habit, and any habit that causes you pain is a habit worth breaking.